In a stunning development that has sent shockwaves through Port Charles, Michael Corinthos has turned himself into authorities for shooting Drew Cain. Following intense pressure from his cousin and PCPD Detective Dante Falconeri, this confession has led to the immediate release of both Willow Tate and Nina Reeves, who had been arrested and charged in connection with the shooting. However, the most shocking twist involves Carly Spencer, who finds herself reeling after discovering that her elaborate plan to frame Willow has backfired spectacularly. The current storyline on ABC's General Hospital has reached a fever pitch as the mystery surrounding who shot Congressman Drew Cain finally comes to light. What began as a seemingly straightforward investigation has evolved into a complex web of family betrayal, planted evidence, and shocking confessions that will forever alter the landscape of several Port Charles families. Michael's web of deception. As the investigation progressed, evidence began mounting against Willow. The Port Charles Police Department discovered that the bullets recovered from Drew's body were fired from a gun registered to Edward Quartermain. When Anna Devane and Harrison Chase served a search warrant at Elizabeth Weber's house where Willow had been staying, they discovered Edward's gun hidden in Willow's room. This discovery, combined with the collapse of Nina's alibi when security footage showed her alone at her apartment building during the time she claimed to be with Willow, led to both women being arrested. Nina was charged with conspiracy to commit murder for providing the false alibi, while Willow faced charges of attempted murder. The arrests were deliberately timed for maximum humiliation. Nina was taken into custody at Bobby's diner in front of her brother Nathan, while Willow was arrested during a supervised visit with her children Wiley and Amelia, in the presence of a family therapist. Many fans speculated that Michael had orchestrated the timing to demonstrate to the court that Willow was an unfit parent. What the public didn't know was that Michael had been the architect of this entire setup. In the October 10, 2025 episode, viewers watched as Michael exhibited suspicious behavior when visiting Elizabeth's home. He looked around the premises carefully and asked to see Willow, offering her supervised visitation with the children a sudden change of heart that seemed good to be true. It was during this visit that Michael planted Edward's gun in Willow's room, ensuring that when the police arrived with a search warrant, they would find exactly what they needed to arrest her. On October 17th, Michael finally confirmed everyone's suspicions when he confessed to Brooklyn Quartermain that he had indeed framed Willow for Drew's shooting. His motivation was clear. He wanted to ensure Willow would never gain custody of their children. Michael had become so consumed by his desire to protect Wiley and Amelia from their mother that he was willing to send her to prison for a crime she didn't commit. Dante's moral dilemma. Detective Dante Falconeri found himself in an impossible position. As a law enforcement officer, he was committed to uncovering the truth. As Michael's cousin and close friend, he struggled with the growing evidence that pointed to Michael's involvement both as potentially the actual shooter and definitely as the person who framed Willow. Dante had observed numerous red flags throughout the investigation. Michael's alibi was weak at best. He claimed to have been with Jacinda Bracken, a call girl, at the time of the shooting. When Michael deliberately invited Christina and Molly to the Quartermain mansion while Jacinda was present, attempting to pass her off as merely a friend, Dante saw through the charade immediately. He recognized it for what it was, a stage set up to establish an alibi. More damning was the fact that Tracy Quartermain had seen Michael near Drew's house on the night of the shooting, though she had chosen to protect him by keeping this information to herself. Only Tracy and the viewers knew this crucial detail, but Dante's detective instincts told him something wasn't right. The discovery of Edward's gun at Elizabeth's house should have been the smoking gun that closed the case against Willow. However, Dante couldn't shake the feeling that the evidence had been planted. The timing was too convenient. Michael's sudden willingness to allow Willow's supervised visitation to suspicious, and his lack of surprise at Willow's arrest to telling. When Michael admitted to framing Willow, Dante knew he had to act. On Monday, October 20th, Dante confronted Michael directly, telling him that he had to come forward and turn himself in if he was guilty of framing Willow. Dante made it clear that as a detective, he could not and would not cover up a crime, even for family. More importantly, Dante had begun to suspect that Michael hadn't just framed Willow, he might actually be the one who shot Drew. The conversation between the two men was intense and emotional. Dante pressed Michael about his whereabouts on the night of the shooting, about the planted gun, and about his willingness to let an innocent woman go to prison. He appealed to Michael's sense of honor, reminding him of the man he used to be before hatred and revenge consumed him. But Dante went further. He confronted Michael with the possibility that he was the actual shooter. He pointed out that Michael had the strongest motive. Drew had not only had an affair with Willow, but was actively working to gain custody of Michael's children. Michael had been spotted near Drew's house at the time of the shooting by Tracy. He had access to Edward's gun collection, and his alibi was fabricated. Michael's confession and arrest. After days of internal struggle and mounting pressure from Dante, Michael finally made the decision to turn himself in. The weight of what he had done both in shooting Drew and in framing Willow had become too much to bear. On Monday, October 20th, Michael made a bold statement that shocked everyone in Port Charles. Standing before Dante and other members of the PCPD, Michael confessed that he was the one who shot Drew Cain. He explained that on the night of September 2nd, he had gone to Drew's house intending to confront him about his relationship with Willow and his custody plans. The confrontation had escalated, and in a moment of rage and desperation, Michael pulled out Edward's gun and shot Drew twice in the back. Michael detailed how he had then fled the scene and hidden the gun, planning initially to dispose of it permanently. However, when the investigation began closing in on him, he panicked and decided to frame Willow instead. He admitted to planting the gun in Elizabeth's house and manipulating the situation to ensure Willow would be arrested in front of their children and a family therapist, making her look like an unfit mother. The confession sent shockwaves through the Port Charles Police Department. Anna Devane, who had been leading the investigation, was stunned by Michael's admission. The man she had known since childhood, the son of Carly Spencer and godson of Jason Morgan, had not only attempted murder, but had also orchestrated an elaborate frame-up of an innocent woman. Michael was immediately arrested and taken into custody. The arraignment for Nina and Willow, which had been scheduled for Monday, October 20th, took a shocking turn when news of Michael's confession reached the courthouse. The charges against both women were dropped, and they were released from custody. Nina and Willow's release. The moment Nina and Willow learned of Michael's confession and their impending release was filled with complex emotions. Nina, who had been prepared to take a plea deal to protect her daughter, found herself vindicated, but also devastated that her grandson had committed such a terrible crime. She had offered to take full responsibility, willing to sacrifice her own freedom for Willow's sake. Willow's reaction was equally complicated. On one hand, she was relieved to be freed and cleared of all charges. On the other hand, she was horrified to learn that the father of her children, a man she had once loved deeply, was capable of not only attempted murder, but also of framing her for the crime. The realization that Michael had been willing to send her to prison to separate her from Wiley and Amelia permanently was a devastating betrayal. During her time in custody, Willow had begun to suspect Michael's involvement. She had asked Drew to tell police that he remembered Michael being at the scene as the shooter, though this request was based more on her growing suspicion than on any actual memory Drew had recovered. When Martin Gray, her attorney, discussed their defense strategy, Willow had insisted they begin shifting blame onto the person who really shot Drew. Now, her instincts had been proven correct. The relationship between Willow and Nina, which had been strained and complicated throughout this ordeal, took on a new dimension with their release. Willow had initially thrown Nina under the bus by revealing to police that her mother had lied to provide an alibi. However, Nina had been prepared to perjure herself further and even accept a plea deal to save her daughter. The experience had highlighted both the depth of Nina's love for Willow and the selfishness that Willow could display when her own interests were at stake. Carly's shocking discovery? While Michael's confession and arrest were shocking enough, perhaps the most stunning revelation involved Carly Spencer. As details of Michael's frame-up emerged, a terrible truth came to light. Carly had played a significant role in planting the evidence against Willow. though she had no idea Michael was the actual shooter. Carly, who had been fiercely protective of Michael throughout the investigation, believed that her son was innocent of the shooting, but vulnerable to being framed for it. When she learned that the murder weapon was Edward's gun and that Michael's alibi was weak, she made a fateful decision. She would plant evidence to implicate Willow instead, believing this would draw attention away from Michael and onto someone she viewed as genuinely guilty of destroying her son's life. On October 9th, Carly paid a suspicious visit to Elizabeth Weber's house. Knowing that Willow was staying there, she claimed to be nervous about what Elizabeth might have told police regarding a conversation she had overheard where Carly threatened to kill Drew. Elizabeth assured Carly that she hadn't said anything to authorities, understanding that Carly had been speaking out of frustration and stress. When Elizabeth went upstairs to take a phone call, Carly acted quickly. She looked around the house, retrieved something from her purse, and then left, still looking around nervously as she departed. What viewers and investigators would later piece together was that during those few minutes alone, Carly had planted Edward's gun in Willow's room. Carly's plan had been to frame Willow for Drew's shooting, accomplishing two goals: protecting Michael from prosecution and punishing Willow for the affair that had destroyed her son's marriage. She may have even been working in coordination with Tracy Quartermaine, who had access to Edward's gun collection at the Quartermaine mansion, and who also wanted to protect Michael. What Carly never imagined was that Michael was actually guilty of the shooting. Her attempt to frame Willow had been based on the assumption that someone else, perhaps Willow, perhaps another Port Charles resident with motive, had killed Drew, and that Michael needed protection from being falsely accused. The revelation that Michael had actually committed the crime, and that Carly's actions had provided him with a way to frame Willow and cover his own guilt, left her reeling. When Michael confessed, Carly was shocked to her core. She had inadvertently aided her son in committing an additional serious crime, framing an innocent person for attempted murder. While she had acted with the intention of protecting Michael, she had actually enabled him to commit a grave injustice against Willow. The gun she had planted as a diversionary tactic had become the centerpiece of Michael's frame-up of his ex-wife. The irony was devastating. Carly had believed she was being a protective mother, using her cunning and willingness to bend the law to save her son from false accusations. Instead, she had helped a guilty man frame an innocent woman, and her help had only delayed justice and compounded Michael's crimes. The aftermath and consequences. The fallout from Michael's confession rippled through Port Charles like an earthquake. The Quartermaine family found itself at the center of yet another scandal, with one of their own facing serious criminal charges. Tracy, who had known Michael was near the scene and had chosen to protect him, now faced questions about whether she had obstructed justice. For the Corinthos family, the pain was even more acute. Sonny Corinthos had tried to warn Carly that the police were issuing warrants, believing she might be in danger of arrest. Now his grandson, the young man he had raised and protected for so many years, was the one behind bars. The parallels to Sonny's own criminal past were inescapable and heartbreaking. Jason Morgan, who had once gone to prison alongside Michael to protect him after Michael killed Claudia Zaltieri, a teenager, watched helplessly as history seemed to repeat itself. But this time was different. Michael wasn't a traumatized adolescent acting in defense of his mother and infant sister. He was a grown man who had coldly shot someone in the back and then methodically framed an innocent woman for the crime. The custody battle over Wiley and Amelia took on an entirely new dimension. Michael, who had been so focused on keeping his children away from Willow because he deemed her unstable and unfit, was now the parent facing serious criminal charges and potential prison time. The irony was not lost on anyone. Willow, despite her struggles and mistakes, had never attempted murder or framed someone for a crime. Drew Cain, recovering from his injuries, had mixed feelings about the resolution. He had survived the shooting and would bear the physical and emotional scars. However, learning that his nephew, someone he had once been close to before their relationship deteriorated, was his would-be killer, added another layer of betrayal to an already complicated situation. For Dante, bringing in his own cousin for attempted murder and conspiracy was one of the most difficult things he had ever done as a police officer. However, he knew that true justice required holding everyone accountable, regardless of their family connections. His integrity and commitment to the law had ultimately led to the truth being revealed and an innocent woman being freed. Looking forward, as Michael awaits trial for the attempted murder of Drew Cain and conspiracy charges related to framing Willow, the future remains uncertain for everyone involved. Legal experts suggest that Michael could face significant prison time if convicted, especially given the premeditated nature of both the shooting and the frame-up. His actions demonstrated not just a moment of passion, but calculated planning and a willingness to destroy others to protect himself. Willow and Nina, though released and cleared of all charges, must now navigate their relationship with Michael as he faces justice. Willow will need to make difficult decisions about allowing Michael any contact with their children, balancing their need for their father against the reality of what he did to both Drew and to her. Carly faces her own reckoning. While she may not face criminal charges for planting the gun, especially if she claims she believed Willow was guilty and was merely helping to expose her, she must live with the knowledge that her actions aided her son in committing a serious crime. Her relationship with Willow, already strained, may be irreparably damaged. The citizens of Port Charles continue to watch as this dramatic saga unfolds, reminded once again that in their town, no family is immune from scandal, no relationship is safe from betrayal, and justice, though sometimes delayed, eventually prevails. The question now is whether Michael can find redemption, whether the families involved can heal, and whether Port Charles can move forward from yet another tragedy that has torn them apart. This storyline has captivated General Hospital viewers with its exploration of how far a parent will go to protect their children, the consequences of revenge and manipulation, and the courage it takes to do the right thing even when it means turning against family. As Diana told Michael, true strength lies not in protecting yourself at all costs, but in facing the consequences of your actions with honesty and integrity. Michael's decision to finally confess, though it came after tremendous damage was done, represents a first step on what will undoubtedly be a long and difficult path toward redemption.